All right, it is time for another episode of First and Pod. It is our AFC offseason preview, right in the thick of the NFL Scouting Combine week. We've got some news that's come out of that. And as per usual, it's hosted by yours truly, Andrew Fillipponi, future NFL Hall of Famer Patrick Peterson, our guys Spence and Kalamazoo, and you out there listening wherever you are. And if you're listening and not subscribed, shame on you. Subscribe, rate it, leave a 5-star rating, and then write a nice review, and that will allow us to rise the ladder here and potentially someday catch the New Heights podcast hosted by Travis Kelce and Jason Kelce. And if we're able to do that, well, then Pat and I are going to be multimillionaires, even more so because they got a huge deal for their podcast. So let's try to get to where they are, level up here. And that's where we're going to start here, Pat, because much like the NFC podcast episode where I started with the already Super Bowl 25 odds and worked my way down. The Chiefs have the best odds in the AFC to get back to the Super Bowl here in the very early stages of the offseason. And the big story with them is the news Wednesday that Travis Kelce went on his podcast and announced that he will come back and play football in 2025. And I want to know from you if that automatically makes Kansas City the favorites to get back to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, 100%, because there's no one, in my opinion, that's in the AFC. I mean, there are teams out there that can compete with them, but with them pretty much having their whole team back, coming back from the previous year, well, this last season that was just played, knowing Patrick Mahomes and knowing Travis and knowing their competitive juices and nature about those gentlemen, those guys want to get back to the big one. They know they're going to have a big target on their back. Obviously, not finishing the job, but everybody in the AFC know who they have to go through in order to get to the Super Bowl. That's going to be in San Francisco next season. You know what I mean? So next year, so. Yeah, they should be the favorites, especially now hearing the news that Travis Kelce is going to be returning for the 25 season. And the fashion that they lost that game, I just know that these guys are going to be very, very hungry to get back to the mountaintop and reclaim what they feel that is theirs.
So that is something we talked about when that game ended. And then the first episode afterwards, when we did our Super Bowl hangover, we talked about Kelce's future. And I said, it's possible he doesn't want to go out this way. The video of how he looked in the game, we've since found out that apparently he was extremely ill and sick, is the rationalizations that have been made for why he looked so lethargic in that game. My answer is that I don't think they should be. And I'll explain why in a second, but I am surprised to hear you put them at the top because you did hint several times during last season that, hey, eventually one of these AFC West teams like the Broncos or the Chargers are going to catch them. Yeah. You just don't think that next year is going to be the year. You're still
I think they're going to be much more competitive than what they were in the years prior. To this season. Now with Pete Carroll, this is first year. Yes, the gap is definitely shrinking. Pete Carroll don't have a real roster right now in Las Vegas, so I don't see him competing this year. But they're going to be a feisty team. I can guarantee that. You got the Broncos, who had a pretty solid season last year under Bo Nix and Sean Payton, a winning coach in this league, and then you got Jim Harbaugh there with the Chargers, LA Chargers, who understand who is a great program builder. You know what I mean? So now you have all of these head coaches that have the pedigree that they do have. Now all they have to do is acquire some of the talents that the Kansas City Chiefs has, to where now the playing field is even and level, to where now we're just playing football, and now everybody won't just go say, oh, it's the AFC West, it belongs to the Kansas City Chiefs. I think from, after this season, teams and the football world is going to start to see that the AFC West is finally starting to catch up.
That's why I'm not picking them, because they went 15-2 last year, and they were so good in one-score games. They won every one-score game during the regular season. I don't think lightning strikes twice. I think they'll still be good in one-score games because they have Reed and Mahomes. I don't think they'll be perfect. So I don't expect them to win 15 again. So that I don't think they'll have the first round bye.
They don't.
I would still
I'm sure
right
they don't
now,
want to win
gun to my
15
head,
games
pick them to
anyway.
win the AFC West.
I'm sure they don't want to win 15
Well, right, because
games
they're
anyway.
probably going to pace themselves. Yeah, I mean, they probably want to pace themselves in the regular season. Well, they did kind of pace themselves. They just happened to win all the games last
But
year.
yeah, I was just
I
going
also
by
think
off of.
that.
Go ahead.
What's that?
I said I was just going off the simple fact that they put out that NFL put out a tweet that no 15-win team has ever won the Super Bowl. I think we talked about that before, or maybe since like the 80s or something like that. I think
It's
me and
been
you
a
talked about that.
while.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, the 49ers and Bears did that, but that's going back to before you were born and before I was alive.
Yeah.
I think they're going to have a lot of roster turnover on offense. They still got to figure out how to block for Mahomes. They should upgrade at tackle, but they drafted a tackle in the second round last year who wasn't any good, and they gave Taylor all that money and he stunk. It's just we've only seen one team ever do it, go to the Super Bowl 4 years in a row, and that was Buffalo in the early 90s. So we just saw how hard it is for a team to win 3 in a row. They got spanked in the Super Bowl. I'm not going to be the all-time hater who says they're going to lose out in the division or not make the playoffs or something silly like that. But I'm just not going to predict them to match history. And yeah, like the question was, do they deserve to be the favorite? Not will they get back there? And you say they do. Would knock them. Well, I'll tell you who I'd have them behind when we get to them here in a second. I lumped together the next two teams because something very interesting happened with the Ravens and Bills, Pat. Now, did you ever take any of these NFLPA surveys when you were in the league?
Yeah.
Were you graded?
I mean,
they rated
honestly
the strength staff. And okay, so that.
Yeah, they just started that though, like 3 years ago, maybe 4.
Right.
So that
it's
always
a new
wasn't a thing. Yeah, that
it's a
always
new way.
wasn't a thing.
Right. It's a new way for the players to show, like, okay, this team needs to get better weight rooms, or this team needs to get a better nutritionist, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So they're trying to hold owners more accountable for this survey. But they also grade head coach performance. And this was really interesting, Pat, with the Bills and Ravens. Both Bills players and Ravens players gave their head coaches, John Harbaugh and Sean McDermott, great B grades. B. Now, among returning coaches in the NFL, I believe, and Spence can double check this, but I think Kevin Stefanski and one other guy were the only 2 coaches who graded out worse than John Harbaugh and Sean McDermott. McDermott got the Bills to the AFC Championship game, and Harbaugh obviously won a playoff game with the Ravens and had them close if Mark Andrews doesn't drop that ball against the Bills in that playoff game. You played in the NFL for a long time on really good teams. It ran the gamut. How do you explain 2 very successful coaches who have been with their teams for a long time grading out so poorly in this survey, Pat?
Man, I think it is probably the younger generation. That's the only thing I could think of, because like the locker room is much younger than what it used to be. So they may be looking for, like at least when I was in camp, you always hear rumbles like, oh man, I hope we get, no pass today, or I hope coach, take practice on the inside or something like that. So I don't know. That's probably something that came into their decision making on why they gave their coach a B grade. But at the end of the day, man, we playing football. You're trying to build, soldiers at the end of the day. You know what I mean? So it's only so much. I can't speak on what went into these players grading, but that's the only thing I can think of. As far as them coach probably not looking out for their body as much as they probably felt, like maybe taking some of the like I said, taking the pads off, maybe moving practice on the inside versus outside. You know what I mean? So maybe meetings may be, this is not an excuse, but maybe meetings are too long, or they may not like the way meetings are being ran, so it's so much because it's so many categories on that when you're grading your head coach. You know what I mean? So a lot could have went into, that B overall grade that made him that. But the only thing I can think of is probably, they're the younger guys probably thinking the coach don't look out for their bodies for the most part. That's the only thing I can think of, because Jim is John is a winner in this league. John Harbaugh, I'm speaking of. He's in the playoff almost each and every year. Just can't find a way, to get over, that second round hump. But for the most part, they put together a good, solid team every single year. You know what I mean? So again, I don't know what went into that coaching, grading, poll or whatever. But maybe we can get a Ravens player on here and ask them what all went into that decision, because I couldn't tell you.
I don't really have a lot of friends in the Ravens locker room. And I don't think we'll be having their kicker on anytime soon either, Pat. So that we'd have to might go through the Rolodex here and figure out some guys. And you just got that joke too soon, maybe.
Yeah, very soon.
Yes. Sorry. You probably have the right answer as far as like John's been around for a while. Sean's a defensive coach. They're old school guys. Maybe they do feel like they were, that practices were too tough, or that it was too demanding, or whatever. The conspiracy theorist in me, like here's what I want the answer to be. This is like from a talk show host. I like drama and that kind of thing perspective. I think it could be, here are two teams where the players look around that locker room and they say, we're good enough to win the Super Bowl. We have Super Bowl caliber players on this roster. We should be doing more than we've done. Lamar Jackson, I should have won a Super Bowl by now. Josh Allen could say the same thing. And maybe both teams feel like in these critical games, their coaches just drop the ball for them. Bad decision-making in terms of play calling or fourth down or game management things. I think that, in both cases, the last couple of years, you could absolutely look at game planning or in-game decisions by both coaches as to why neither one of them have beaten Kansas City in big games. So I wonder that. Like, I've been around teams, Steelers teams, because I'm in Pittsburgh, during the, Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, Roethlisberger era, where maybe it wasn't so much where they looked at Tomlin and said, he's holding us back. But Pat, I can tell you they absolutely looked at offensive coordinators and assistant coaches that way. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's what's happening here. It's not our fault. It's their fault. It's his fault kind of thing. So,
yeah. So you're pointing fingers.
That's what I'm hoping is the case. Yes. Hey, dude, it's easier to point a finger than it is the thumb, is it not?
It is.
It's hard to blame yourself, for sure.
You got 3 more fingers pointing right back at you, though.
True. All right. Bengals. Let's do the Bengals here. The plan is to tag Higgins and make Chase apparently the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL. So finally give him the biggest bag, but string Higgins along for a year. Is that smart?
Oh, man, this is why I hate the franchise tag. Me and Brian had this conversation. I feel like the franchise tag should be only held with one player, and that's the quarterback. Because
yeah, we talked about that.
No doubt about it. The franchise player, when every team build a franchise, who they consider as their franchise player? The quarterback. No other position on the football field, unless a Myles Garrett type guy. You don't have a quarterback or a TJ Watt, JJ Watt type of guy. Unless you have one of those guys, every other position is pretty much up for grabs for the most part. They just want to squeeze as much juice out of that position and then move on to the next. But it is right to compensate Jamar, because he earned it. Triple Crown winner. Led league in catches, touchdowns, and yards. He deserved a big payday. But as well, T. Higgins deserved a big payday as well. So now you don't have the ability to pay both of these guys. Allow this man to go out and test the market, elsewhere, because now anything can happen. He was already banged up this year. So who's to say now this contract was guaranteed, but it's not guaranteed, no lucrative guaranteed money, just a 1-year guaranteed deal, which is still good money. But at the same time, imagine if this guy go out there and sign a 3-year contract. It could be way more lucrative than this 1-year deal that he's going to be playing under the franchise tag. So I always felt like the franchise tag is bogus. I know it works in the franchise's best interest, because now they have another top 5 player that they don't have to pay what the player feel that he's worth, but we're going to give him the average of the top 5 players at his position. I just feel like that's not right, especially if the iron is hot for that player to go out and test the market right now. Let's stop holding these guys back, because we already know the quarterbacks hold 60% of the salary cap, which now you only have the ability to play maybe 4 other 5-star players on your team. So that's why I feel like the salary cap the salary cap they need to have a quarterback salary cap, and they need to have the franchise tag only labeled for the quarterbacks, because they already take up so much of the salary cap anyway.
So 2 separate caps is what you're arguing here.
Yep.
Quarterback cap and roster cap. Dude, that would be a humongous advantage that would be an even bigger advantage for the teams with good quarterbacks. Because if that's now separate, I mean, those teams can absolutely load up, because now the quarterback is not hurting the rest of the roster building. Which, when you root for a team like I do that does not have a quarterback right now, you'd basically you'd be screwed even worse than you are now. So that's.
Yeah,
but if I had Ben Roethlisberger again, I'd love your idea.
Yeah.
If I had my guy and you're saying, hey, this doesn't count now, I'd be like, Pat, that's the most brilliant, thoughtful, insightful thing I've ever heard. But I'm on the other side of the tracks now. I'm in like the hobo section of town, the poverty section of town. So I hate that idea as someone that's extremely biased in this situation.
I just hate the fact that the franchise tag is for other players. I think that should just be only
no doubt. And I think the next time they negotiate the CBA, they should work hard, the players, to change that rule. Here's why I think I'm going to flip what you said, though, about the wide receivers, and why I don't think it was smart what happened here. The Bengals were dumb in that they should have signed Chase before last year and said, all right, here's what Jefferson's making. We'll give you $1 million or $2 million or $2 million more a year, and we're going to lock it up right now. And they would have saved themselves money, and they would have never gone through the BS with him of being like, this team's stringing me along here and making me earn it when I'm already an elite player. They would have saved themselves millions of dollars, and maybe that money could have been better, put to better use here this offseason. The reason why I'm okay with the Higgins franchise tag, Pat, is because I think it's actually going to end up working out for both sides. I think they're tagging him, and maybe I'll end up being wrong about this, because I don't think they can. If they go into the season with him on the tag, that's bullshit. And I don't think they're going to have the camaraderie that they want, because he's going to be frustrated and fed up with the team because they didn't pay him. And I think even though Burrow will get him the ball or try to, like, I wouldn't want that in my locker room is my point. I don't see T. Higgins like, you know what, let me try to win a Super Bowl here and then get out. I think he's going to be in a salty mood the entire year. And I wouldn't blame him for that, because I would feel the same exact way. Here's why I think it's okay, though. You don't want him to walk in free agency, which starts March 10th. So you put the franchise tag on him, and you basically say, look, it's a non-exclusive tag. We're going to sign and trade you, basically. So go have your agent. You could talk to all 31 other teams, negotiate what you want your money to be with that team. And then when you have that in place, we'll trade you to that team. So the franchise tag is just really, Pat,
just security for him. Just a little band-aid.
Because they don't want to just lose him in free agency.
Right.
So it guarantees the Bengals getting something back. So what I'm guessing is,
but see, that's going back to my point on why is why they should have that only for quarterbacks, because I feel like quarterbacks are not, I won't necessarily say the only position, but they're the position that hold the most leverage. to be able to
No doubt.
go, you know what I mean? So why would
So no
you got
doubt.
the franchise tag and then we just gonna hold this and say, oh, we just gonna hold this for trade bait. Like I just feel like that's belong. I mean, like I said, it
So
works well in their favor, not the players.
what I'm predicting is something like this happens. The Patriots get together with Higgins' agent. They come together on like a 4-year, $120 million contract. And then the Patriots trade their second round pick to the Bengals for Higgins. And then they immediately sign him to that deal. That's what I'm predicting is going to happen. He will not play for the Bengals this year, and they'll get some compensation that's better than the draft pick they would get for losing him in free agency. All right,
Yeah.
Texans, Pat. I did not have a great Texans topic. I'm not going to lie to you. I didn't think there was a lot of interesting stuff about them, even though they're a good team that won a playoff game again last year. Crappy regular season, but they win a playoff game every year. So this is what I have for them. The NFL plans to change the overtime rule for the regular season again. Now they just want to make it force. So no matter what, even if you get the ball and score a touchdown, each team gets a possession in overtime. Are you fine with doing that for the entire 18-game season where every game you're not? Let's hear why.
Just because, man, like, leave the game how it is. Just because it all started with because Josh Allen didn't have an opportunity to touch the ball in overtime against Patrick Mahomes.
Yep, that's
The
exactly
rule
right.
has always been the rule. If you're gonna put your defense out there, stop them. Point blank. Period. That rule's been the same rule for God knows how long. Then that came in, and now they want to come in, and now they want both teams, no matter who, if they score a touchdown, now they want both teams to touch the ball. No, if you got your ass scored on, you deserve to go home. You don't get no more chances. You put your defense out there to stop them. You gave up a touchdown, so you gave up a double whammy. Go keep going to the locker room. Point blank. Period. I just feel like I know this is they want to see these offensive guys, the scoreboards being lit up, this, that, and other. But damn, what reward the defense going to get? Like it's always something changing towards the offense. Like we already everything's already geared up against the defenders anyway. So what reward are the defenders going to get now? We can't touch receivers past 5 yards, but they can touch us all the way down the field. If they get a pass interference, it's 10 yards. If we get a pass interference, it's a spot foul. What else they got? Now, if a defense stops somebody, if your defense is not good enough or don't stop someone in overtime, now we still want to give the opposing team the ball back, to try to go back down there and score, a touchdown to continue the game to be played. Man, you got 60 minutes. 60 minutes not enough. I mean, overtime, it happens every so often. So why are we continuing to tinker with the rule with a situation that barely happens? Like how many overtime games we had last year, Spence?
He'll look that up. And the thing about what you're saying is it's not like it used to be. If you got the ball to start overtime and all you needed was to kick a field goal, that team won at a much higher percentage than they lost. 16, he said. So with the way kickers have gotten so much better, the game basically came down to the coin toss. And so before they put in the rule of like a touchdown, you can win the game with a touchdown. You kick a field goal, the other team gets a chance. Before that rule came into effect, basically, if you lost the coin toss, you felt like you were going to lose. I still think the coin toss is an advantage because if you score a touchdown, you win, which was why my rule, which they would never do because it's too gimmicky, but goes back to what you said about how defenses don't have enough incentive in this or don't have, all these rules benefit offense and non-defense. My idea was from the very beginning, all right, if you take the ball first and you don't score at all, okay, you lose. That's game. You take the ball, you score a touchdown, you win. You kick a field goal, the other team gets the ball. But if you get stopped, period, no, you're not punting it back. That's the fucking game. You lost.
I like it.
How
4
lame would
hearts.
that be?
4 hearts, man.
Right?
I love it.
But they never do that. But the reason why I've always liked my idea, and not only because I came up with it, but it would put huge stock in what defense did, but also it wouldn't drag the game on. In the regular season, they don't want overtime's 10 minutes. It could end in a tie still. But, it would put emphasis on that first possession where the defense could win the game right there and not just on some kind of pick six or safety or something like that, Pat, But you're right, though. It does go back to them wanting more offense and not wanting the quarterbacks of the league to not have a rebuttal every time a team scores.
You got next week. You got next week and next year. We'll see them again.
Chargers. Jim Harbaugh at the Combine says LA needs to level up. So they need to, everyone around Justin Herbert needs to get better. Herbert, good or great. It's the rest of the roster around him that needs to improve. Pat, if I was one of those guys, and this dude basically threw more interceptions in a fucking playoff game than he did, sorry for my language, than he did all year. I wouldn't want to hear that from my coach.
Nope. Me either.
It's us, not him. And I think Harbaugh's brilliant. He's weird. He's quirky. And he wants to pump up his quarterback and build up his confidence. But come on now, Pat. At some point, we got to hold Justin Herbert accountable for why that team has not won a playoff game since he's been there.
Amen.
You're going to pay him $50 million a year? You got to do it that way. Right?
Amen. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Like, I'm with you 100%. Like, when are everybody, like, when is everyone's going to, like, start to be like, okay, like, I won't necessarily say it is Justin Herbert, but at the same time, it is him as well not making the plays that need to be made. Like, yes, this year he took a jump on not turning the ball over much less, but he went right back to the same Justin Herbert in the playoffs. Like, literally, it looked like he was like a deer in headlights. Like, I don't know if he forgot what color the opposite team was, but he was just throwing it straight to guys. Derek Stingley had a career game, against Justin Herbert in that playoff game. So they have, especially the coaching staff around him that understands his skill set, understand what it takes to win ball games. Now it's going to be upon him, and they do need, I feel like a bona fide number one receiver. I think their offensive line is, pretty makeshift. Those guys can pretty pass and run block pretty solid. Not the greatest, but they can, pass and run block. So I think if they go out and get a bona fide receiver, I don't know what they're going to do with JK if he's I think it was on a 1-year deal. So I don't know if they're going to be able to get him to come back, but it is some solid running backs that they can probably go after in the free agency. But I do not like, or the draft as well. If I was a player in that locker room, I wouldn't be feeling that comment as well that my coach said, because at the end of the day, we all in this thing together. You know what I mean? So, especially the way we lost, and you're going to go out and say, we need to level up around him. That's just, to me, that's just unacceptable to be coming from the head, because there's ways to pump up, your team or pump up your quarterback. To me, that wasn't it, because now you may have guys in your locker room looking at you a certain type of way.
Yeah, and I feel like there's always an excuse for Herbert. First, he didn't have the coaching. Staley wasn't up to snuff. Offensive line, their weapons aren't good enough. Their defense gives up too many big plays. Now Harbaugh's there as a quarterback whisperer. Like, other teams, Tom Brady went to a Super Bowl without Rob Gronkowski because he was hurt. Look at Mahomes with his offensive line. They traded Tyreek Hill. If he's going to get paid like one of those guys, it shouldn't have to be perfect around him. And I think part of the issue here is, Pat, like, he's in LA. It's not really, it's not like Philly or Boston where the fans are crazy. And I think he gets a free pass for that reason.
Yeah,
they don't have
a hall pass.
Right? So, there's not a lot of pressure there. And he also aesthetically makes every throw. So people are like, he's incredibly talented, but to me, the production and what they've gotten out of him so far in terms of team success has not matched how people talk about him and view him. All right, Dolphins. This gets back to what we were talking about with this NFLPA survey. Mm-hmm. They got the highest grades of any team across the board. McDaniel got an A+. The owner there got an A. Just got rave review. I mean, it sounds like it's a damn resort. The players are making it sound like going there is basically like staying in Belize or something. It's incredible, Pat. So I want to know if you think this is a big deal. Like, is this going to help them get free agents? Is this a good thing?
No. I mean, no. Hey, I'm gonna go back to what I said about Jim Harbaugh. I'm sorry, John Harbaugh. When he talked about the players, saying that the coach is too hard on them. You remember what was coming out of the Miami Dolphins locker room? Tyreek Hill can come whenever he wants. Odell Beckham showing. Well, I'm not. This is all allegedly.
Allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly. You know what I mean? That Odell was, came in whenever he want. Guys showing up numerous of times throughout the week, late to meetings, team meetings, and coach kind of swept it up under the rug. So to me, it must seem like a little, like you said, a resort, a buddy system over there, man. They ain't really tripping about they don't have too many rules apparently, to where coach just allowed them to be them. So I don't know. That's probably where that A+ grade came from, because I never been around, Mike as a head coach, and I knew I went up against him when he was with Washington back in the day. I think he was like a control guy.
Yeah, he worked
then he was in San Fran. I think he was a running game coordinator at that time. So I don't know him, personally, but just looking at him from afar on the sideline, he just seemed like one of those cool uncles that pretty much let any and everything go by. But that's just my assumption and my observation by looking at Coach Daniels from the sideline.
By the way, 2 of the owners you played for got killed in this survey. Rooney in Pittsburgh and Bidwell in Arizona got the absolute worst grade of any guy, Pat.
Yeah, I saw that, man. And I can see why probably, Pittsburgh got it. Just because I was reading some of the comments that what went into the F of, they felt like ownership is not doing everything in their power to invest into the facility, as far as the locker room, and things like that. So I think that's where the Pittsburgh Steelers F came from, as far as the ownership. And I did not
see. They didn't have a sauna until this year. How is that possible?
Bro, you want me to tell you something about that, man?
Yes.
Bro, when I came there, because that's literally how I get my body get going. So I get in the locker room, I'm already, they already told me that it's going to be, it's tradition. I'm like, all right, cool. So I'm cool with tradition. You know what I mean? Getting that joint, I'm like, damn, man, they wasn't tripping. This is like real life tradition, right? So getting the joint, start talking to Marcel, because he was the strength coach at the time. I'm like, yo, yeah, what's the sauna? He's like, nah, we don't have no sauna. We just got a steam room. A steam room? That's not beneficial to us. Like as a ball player, they ain't doing nothing but getting like water weight off, man. I need something that's going to, stretch my muscles, this, that, and other. So I go up to immediately, hey, man, Coach Tomlin, man, we need to fix something around here, man. We need a sauna, man. I just feel like that'll just help the team be healthier, in the stretch, just because, like, guys, you just can't go out. Most guys like to get in the hot tub, before practice. But for me, I feel like the sauna was always good for my muscles to be stretched, because I think of my muscles as rubber bands. Like, you put a rubber band in the refrigerator and you try to stretch it, it's gonna pop. If you put a rubber band outside and let it get, lubed up and you get loosened up a little bit, it's gonna stretch it a little bit further. You know what I mean? So I always took that approach, when I was playing a game of football. So I was like, man, coach, man, if I'm back here next year, meaning if I was here finishing up my 14th season, I was like, man, we need a sauna here. And on my exit meeting, he told me, he was like, man, I'm gonna get us a sauna. just because you brought it to my attention, I wasn't there to see it, but it's good to hear that they do have a sauna in the facility now.
Bro, you go to like LA Fitness and there's a sauna. You go to an NFL team.
I used to go to the what's that hotel downtown where all the baseball teams stay? Is that the Fairmont?
Yep. Yeah.
I used to go to the Fairmont and use their sauna every single day. I promise. Every single, because I had to have it. I had to have the sauna. I had to have it.
Unreal, man. Oh, dude. That's good. All right. We'll get to the Steelers in a little bit here. Broncos are next. So they're linked to Ashton Jeanty, the Boise State running back, Pat. I don't think I've ever asked you this. Where do you come down on drafting running backs in the first round?
If they are a Christian McCaffrey, a Bijan Robinson, like those type of backs that can catch the ball out of the backfield, that's real dynamic, regardless,
Saquon.
Saquon, regardless on how he's touching the ball, he's a transcending type of back. And I don't feel like Gentry's that. But
either.
if it was a Saquon Barkley, those type of backs that I named earlier, I spend a first round pick on a running back. But Gentry, I'm not spending a first round draft pick on that because he's a downhill running back. There's only so much I can get out of him. He's going to be off the field on third down. Like if I'm spending a first round pick on a back, I need him to be an every down back. I need him just come out when he's tired. I need him in the passing game. I need him motioning. Like I need him to be a hybrid in a sense that can do multiple things versus carrying the ball.
I've seen some people say that he could be a bigger threat in the passing game as a guy that catches it out of the backfield. They almost blame the Boise State coaching staff for not allowing him to do that or getting him more involved there, which I think is actually pretty disrespectful to like what that program has been able to do. It's not like he was at a place where, they struggle offensively or they're winning 7 or 8 games a year or something like that, where it's a mediocre team. It's literally like the best non-power conference team in the entire country. So I don't really look at Boise and say, well, their coaches are in over their head, or, if he was in a better situation, he would have been more productive that way. I tend to agree with you on that, actually. The other thing is Sean Payton, last year, their offense was fine, and they did it with running back by committee. Each guy had a different role in their offense. So the draft is loaded with running backs. Like, I'm not even convinced Gentry's going to be the best running back in this class. In fact, if you just, threw out there, who's going to be the most productive running back in this draft, Gentry or the field? I get every other running back. I would bet on the field that among the other 10 to 15 running backs from this draft who will play in the NFL, one of them will be better than him. I remember when Kansas City picked Clyde Edwards-Helaire, no offense to your LSU peer, but it was like, well, they're so good they can afford to do that. Mm-hmm. They would have been better off using that pick on another guy and drafting. They got Pacheco in the 7th round. He was better. Right. So it's almost sometimes people will say like, well, if your team's really good, that can be like the last piece. But even then, why not just sign a Derrick Henry or a Saquon Barkley when those guys become available? I'm not a fan of it like you unless you're just 100% sure the guy is going to be an absolute animal and beast in the NFL. And I just don't feel that way about Gentry. And I also don't think the Broncos are so good where like you put him on their team and they're just unstoppable.
Right.
Jaguars and Patriots. I lumped them in together because either one of these teams could take Travis Hunter. And Travis was asked at the combine this week about his position, and he won't commit to one, Pat. The only thing he said was, are you going to return punts? And he said, I already have 2 jobs, which I thought was actually a pretty good answer. But you're a guy that was great at both. So maybe, I don't know. I mean, what do you think of even that respect, like trying to get him the ball in that way? Do you think he'd be good at it, first of all?
I don't know. I don't think we ever seen him field punts or kickoffs.
No, we haven't.
Yeah, man. Punt returning is definitely an art for sure because you're worrying about so much that can obviously you control your own fate by the fair catch, but for the most part, it's so much pressure on you because you got to think about this as well. 9 times out of 10, when the punt returner is catching the ball, there's almost someone in front of that guy's face almost all the time. So there's so much that goes into not only fielding the ball, but understanding where the people are around you on the football field. You know what I mean? So being a good punt returner, that in my opinion, that's a very, very special art. You know what I mean? If you're able to,
And Dion did it so well, honestly. I think if he saw that greatness potential in Hunter, he would have just had him do it, even with everything else he was doing at
yeah,
Colorado.
yeah,
So that
yeah.
tells me he's probably not cut out for it. But what do
Mhm.
you make of him going to the combine and still being up in the air or not really showing his hand or tipping his hand on where he's going to play in the NFL?
Yeah, I thought that he said that he was going to go in as a DB. I thought that's what he said, but I guess he's just going into the combine as a DB.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I've never been in that position before, so I don't know what advice that he's getting.
99.9% of NFL players haven't been in that position
That's what
before
I'm
if you think
saying.
about
So I don't know what, advice that he's getting,
it. And by the way,
from
he's not working
overseeing.
out at the combine. So he went in wherever went in. He's not actually doing he's not working out with corners or working out with wide receivers. He's not working out at all. He's only doing
Yeah,
interviews and getting his measurements done. So,
yeah.
anyways,
Yeah, it's going to be a quite a show though when they do decide to work. Well, whenever their pro day date is released, it's definitely going to be a show. I can guarantee you that one for sure. So, like I said, I don't know what advice to give Travis because, like I said, no one has ever been in that position. Far as
well,
having a choice to pick a position that they want to be playing in the NFL. And not only that, now you pretty much have everyone holding their pockets
I,
on your decision on what position that you're going to play. But
I
I
mean,
just feel like,
no, I was going to say, Pat, I literally value your opinion more on this than any person I've ever talked to because of how you played the position. When you look at him, do you see someone who is capable of being on your level of corner? Like, do you see a guy with that kind of skill set or traits to be multiple time all pro, lockdown, Darrelle Revis, Pat Peterson, Richard Sherman level corner?
yeah, I think he
You
do
do.
because he has a dog. He has that dog mentality. He loves the game. And if that was his only, job to do, there's no doubt in my mind that he can be an all pro, all decade player, multiple, pro bowler, even possibly being like a Patrick Surtain this year. You know what I mean? Having an opportunity to win the defensive player of the year award. That's what type of talent Travis Hunter
Wow.
is, regardless on what side of the ball that he picked. I just feel like him going in as a DB, man, you control your own destiny, man. You don't have to worry about no offensive line. You ain't got to worry about no quarterback. You ain't got to worry about the right offensive coordinator that's able to dial up plays for you. Like you go out there, if you're a shutdown corner, you're gonna earn your stripes. Everybody knows it. So now it's on you to go out there and make plays. You know what I mean? So that's why I feel like going in as a DB will be more beneficial for his career.
Would
Because
you
at the
get
same
bored in
time,
games when teams were
say it again, Pony.
no, I was just going to ask you that. Would you get bored in games when teams were like, Pat's got this guy locked down so bad that we're just not even going to test him or try him? Would that piss
Oh
you
yeah,
off, or would you be like, oh, this is pretty cool? Yeah.
yeah. Because I done that a lot in high school, like being bored. But then when it got to the NFL, it was like, damn, like you know what I mean. I'm really a cover artist. You know what I mean. So it's something that's literally been following me. You can go back to college. You know what I mean. It's been multiple games that I've given up 0 yards or 0 catches, or not even had a pass thrown my way. You know what I mean? So after like year 5, that's when I kind of had to get out of that mindset of not being caught, slipping. You know what I mean? So that's when I used to just come up with games, within myself, or just running around, being extra animated with my teammates, just so I can be able to stay engaged in the game and stay on my toes to where whenever the play, may come my way, I'm ready to make it. Because I even had it down to 2016 and 15. I was getting like 2 targets on average, like 2.3 targets a game. I think that year I gave up 32 catches or something like that. It was down to a science, bro, to where I got one pass attempt on me in the first quarter. And then I got a couple passes attempted, my way before halftime. None really in the third quarter. And then the fourth quarter, I kind of got a little action. And when I started seeing that, obviously the first 15 plays, who you want the ball to go to. But one of the key pivotal, drives in the game is always before halftime, because you want to try to get points on the board. So obviously you want to try to get the ball to your playmaker. Mm-hmm. Coming out of halftime, you're trying to pretty much fix on what you feel that was broken or that wasn't successful, in out of halftime. And then the fourth quarter, you're going back to your bread and butter. So that was something not just how cerebral I was and how in tune I was with the game on kind of understanding when I was going to get targets in certain, parts of the game. So that's kind of how I kind of, kept myself from not getting bored, because as I started watching film, I started understanding when my targets started to come within the game.
Steelers and Raiders I put together, Pat, because they are the 2 AFC team linked to Matthew Stafford, to the point where, what do you know? Stafford and Tom Brady were together in Montana. Mm-hmm. And depending on which reporter you like, it wasn't by accident. And Brady was doing everything in his power to convince Stafford that playing for the Raiders is the right way to go. Who does it make more sense for? Does it make more sense for the Steelers to go after Stafford, or does it make more sense for the Raiders to try to pick up Stafford, in your opinion?
Steelers. Raiders have nothing to play for right now, in my opinion. Like, they may have some salary cap. I don't know what their salary cap number is, but they may have salary cap to bring some guys in.
They got like $130 million in cap space.
Yeah. But in my opinion, when you're having a new head coach, there's still going to be some gelling that needs to kind of go, that kind of needs to happen before that team start to really catch its stride. I mean, we saw it with the Los Angeles Chargers. Not to say it can't happen with the Las Vegas Raiders, but there's still some moves that need to be made, if that makes sense. But I feel like it makes the most sense for the Pittsburgh Steelers, because we all say they're a quarterback away, but now you'll get you a much more credible veteran quarterback, a guy that's easily going to get you, 3,700 yards passing, on the low number, 25 touchdown passes, and multiple 300-yard games, because we all know Matthew Stafford is a gunslinger and he knows how to get the ball to his playmaker. So
do you think Tomlin would actually open up the offense for him?
He won't have no choice. What you mean? Matthew Stafford.
I know. Hey, people here ask that question because of the way things have gone.
Man, he won't have no choice, man. Now that's when the offensive coordinator got to get out of his own way and let your players be players. Like, I know you got what you got. Your scheme is your scheme, but when you have a Matthew Stafford, a guy that's averaging, I don't know what his career average is, but I'm sure it's north of 250. You know what I mean? You got to let him cook.
So I think Stafford. Okay, so I'm going to take this 2 different ways. I think the Steelers should want him more than the Raiders, because the Steelers are winning 9 or 10 games every year, but they're getting their heads pounded in the playoffs every season. And the only guy, you're not going to be any different if Russ comes back. In fact, you'll be probably worse. And I don't see Fields making that jump. So in my opinion, of all the quarterbacks that are potentially out there, Stafford's the only one that makes them a real contender because of everything you just said. And I think he makes everything better. I think he'll make Freiermuth better. I think he might be one of the few guys that actually might get a rapport with Pickens. They're both Georgia guys. He can make every throw, right? I mean, all of that stuff. I think the offensive line is young. He'll make the offensive line look better because he knows when to get rid of the ball. All those things. Defense, he's only played with a top 10 defense one time in his entire career. One time. That's it. Top 10. So the Steelers should absolutely do everything they can to get him. And I argue with people here that think they're more than a quarterback away. They're underestimating how good this guy is. In the snow in Philadelphia, he's one play away from beating the Eagles. He came closer to beating the Eagles than anybody in the playoffs. He's that damn good. But I think Stafford should want to go to the Raiders more than the Steelers. And here's why. It's indoors. You've got Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly there. You've got Brady overseeing the organization. You've got Brock Bowers. You've got a good offensive line. And you've got all that money. And you've got a top 10 pick. So I think in terms of like his longevity as a quarterback, I think he would do better in Vegas than he would in Pittsburgh. But I think Pittsburgh should be way more desperate to get him.
Yeah.
Because the Raiders still could, if the Raiders lose out on Stafford, Pat, they could still draft Shedeur Sanders in the first round where they are.
Yeah, they can still get a quarterback.
I don't like the Steelers' plan B, which is to just try to run Justin Fields back out there and see where it takes them. All right. The Colts are next. I didn't want to do an Anthony Richardson topic. That's where the combine is. So I want to know from you, what is Patrick Peterson's best combine story?
My best combine story, I probably have to go with the night before, running in the hallway of the convention center where the combine is actually is held. I think it's not called Lucas Oil Stadium still, is it? All right, cool.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool because the stadium was connected to the convention center. So I remember walking like on the bridge, on the overpath or whatever, like 9:30. Just got done doing one of my last interviews with the team. And then I just wanted to, just get in the zone because the next day was time for testing. Actually the video is still on YouTube too. Spence may have to pull it up the night before the combine. But yeah, just running through, working on my starts, just getting in the right headspace. So when the lights came on the next day, I was already in that mode, you know what I mean? And that night before, I kind of just visualized everything that I was going to do the next day. And I end up being the player of the day, running my 4.3, 10.6 broad jump, 38 vert. I think I ran like a 9 something in the 3-cone, a 4 flat in the short shuttle, so it was just a real magical day. And it all started with the night before, man, in the convention center, getting myself prepared for a life-changing moment.
And Spence said you put the bling in for it too. You had big
earrings. Yeah, my earrings, man. Them joints was like, I think it was doing like 5 carats each, 4 or 5 carats each. Yeah, it was.
And these are like the real things. These aren't the Chad Johnson like piercing pagoda earrings.
Nah. These were the real things, man. My wife has them now, but have those earrings now. But yeah, see, I don't even wear my earrings anymore because I got little earlobes, man.
You want to hear a very quick story and then back to your combine stories. So yep. I've had my ears pierced for 20 years. I'm the same way as you. I have not put an earring in my ear for like a look in a while.
Mm.
So we're at the Steelers-Vikings game in Minnesota, my wife and I, that Thursday night game with you guys where you got that
21.
Roethlisberger came back and Harrison Smith knocked the ball away from Freiermuth at the end of the game. Yep. Chase Claypool signaling for a first down. The clock's running, and I'm like, what the hell are you doing?
He was celebrating. I remember that.
So I don't know if you remember this, but basically Dalvin Cook ran for like 200 yards in the first half of that game. Like he told Aaron Andrews after the game that she could have run for 100 yards in that game in heels. So we're there, and I'm like, this is one of the worst first halves I've ever seen. And so we've been, it's a night game. We've had a few too many drinks. So I say to her, I'm like, if the Vikings score a touchdown on this drive, I'm going to take your, she had long dangly earrings in. I'm like, I'm going to take your earrings out and I'm going to put them in my ear as like to like change the luck of the game. You guys scored. And I think Cousin threw a touchdown pass to KJ Osborne. And so like that's the one time in the last like 10 years I had long dangly black and gold earrings in my ears.
Wow. It did not change the luck.
And I thought it was gonna until the very end. So wait, I want to just go back to this convention story with you quick. So was that something that other guys were doing? Or you're like, you know what? I'm going to use this space and this time. Like, I got to actually like run through it to give myself like the confidence to go out there and like do it the next day, kind of like routine.
I think I was so zoned out. I don't remember anybody else down there with me. I just remember my dad, my trainer, and my agent being down there for the most part. Just people just kept walking by. Like I was just, Spence, pull it up. It's on YouTube. The night before the draft. I just remember being.
Were you nervous when you went out there the next day? Like, were you someone in like that situation? Because obviously football comes naturally to you. You've done it your entire life. You've always been really good at it. But like the actual like workout, that's like it is a football skill, but it's not a football skill. It's more of like a working out, training Olympics kind of thing. You know, there are things you do to get ready to play football, but it's not like covering a guy. It's running fast for 40 yards and vertical jumps and cone drills and shit. So like, were you nervous because it's all eyes on you and underwear basically doing that for an hour?
Poni, that's what people don't understand. I've been number one at my position since I was in middle school. Like,
right.
So nervous for what? Like, I've been doing Spark camps, being the highest rated player at the Spark camp. I've been the USC Rising Star camp. Went there, won MVP there. I've been to the U.S. All-American undergrad camp. Went there, won MVP there too. So, like, I've been doing this. So it was just another day in the office for me. Like, I've been shining, So for the most part, it was just, like I said, it was another day in the office, man. I was just out there happy. Now I'm on the biggest stage now to showcase my talents, to really put that iron on the skin. When you get branded, by a sorority or anything like that, a fraternity, that's exactly what it was. Now we at the NFL Combine. You've been doing this since you was in middle school, high school, college. Now you're at the biggest stage of them all. Now it's time to stamp this damn thing.
So it's like the last thing. It's like this is like the final chapter for me, like the final impression that I can make that I'm absolutely the best at what I do. Kind of
no
thing.
doubt about it. Man, I ain't want nobody to be even second guessing.
Right.
So that's why I had to go out there and get the player of the day.
I actually ran a 40 at Pitt's Pro Day a couple of years ago, and it was a 4. No, it was not 4. What am I talking about?
I can say, come on now, Poni.
It was 5.71. It was 5.71. But I'm in don't say okay. That's terrible. But I'm in much better shape. It's really bad. I mean, it's still a full second better than what Eisen does every year. But but I think I can do low 5s now. I'm confident I could do that, which is still, more than 1 second worse than you on a bad day. Jets, speaking of corners, Aaron Glenn, now the coach of the Jets, says everyone there is not happy with the decision to move on from Aaron Rodgers. Why would he say that?
And I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. Because at the end of the day, how everyone there not happy.
That's like a tip of the cap to Aaron Rodgers. Like, you were so good. We're going to act like we're not doing cartwheels and high-fiving each other now that you're gone.
Right. Because, hell, we even seen reports coming out, if Aaron Rodgers is going to be back on the New York Giants, he cannot do his Pat McAfee show anymore. That was sign number 1 right there that they didn't want him around. And with his antics that he continued to pull off after each and every game that they lost, that he point the finger at, these younger players. Like, you're supposed to be a guy that feeds confidence in your players, not tear it away from them. And that's what he was doing, last year to the players in that locker room. So I don't know why why Aaron would even say that, but I'm not buying it.
I really am going to be very interested in, like, if any of this buzz around Rodgers right now, like, oh, he's reached out to the Giants and said, hey, would you be interested in bringing me there? Oh, if Stafford gets traded, Sean McVay would actually be interested in Aaron Rodgers. My gut thought on that is that it's all bullshit, and he's actually not going to end up on any of those teams, and he's not going to play in the NFL this season. But it would be absolutely wild if Stafford got traded and that's what the Rams decided to do for next year. I think my head would explode, actually. If that's what if Sean McVay, like, of his own volition, voluntarily got rid of Matthew Stafford because he wanted to team up with Aaron Rodgers. If I was the owner of the team, I would have him in the office like, I thought you were boy genius. What's going on here?
I would too. I wouldn't like that that relationship. I don't think that'll work.
I don't think he's going to play in the NFL this year, Pat. I'm going to stand by that comment. You want to join me in that take or no?
I'm 50-50, man.
You're sitting right on the fence.
Yeah, I'm still against the fence. We got to see what happens in about a month and a half in this draft, to see what teams end up, because I don't think he get picked up before the draft.
Damn. Oh, then I think he's done. If you're saying he's not on a team, all of free agency happens, all those dominoes fall, Sam Darnold, Justin Fields, Matthew Stafford, then Sanders and Ward get picked, and he's still not on a team. Yeah, I think at that point he's done. That's my guess.
Because for most teams that need a quarterback, they're going to be looking for younger quarterbacks. Like Aaron Rodgers basically going to be like on a 1-year deal.
For sure. Yeah.
So I can't see who would take a chance on him before the draft, especially the quarterback teams that need quarterbacks.
Well, right. So if you're the Giants, like, I'd rather start with, I mean, you and I can obviously debate this at a later time, but like, would you rather have Cam Ward or Aaron Rodgers? Now they're yes.
Yeah, I'd rather have Cam Ward all day.
Me too. And like, I understand that maybe their owner and GM feels like we got to win this year or we're going to get fired. But speaking of dumb, how dumb would you have to be in New York to sign Aaron Rodgers on March 10th? Basically make the decision that you could still draft Ward, but he's going to be Rodgers' backup. Like, how could you do that when the team in New York that you share a stadium with just had their GM and coach fired by making the same decision? Yeah. Like, that would just be insanity to me.
Yeah, that would be
if that happens. So
don't put it past him.
So I don't think he'll be on an NFL roster unless Spence points out maybe there's an injury. And Spence says Indianapolis. I would still be shocked by that because they try to act like a team that's all about, they got to change their culture. They had a shitty culture this year where McAfee's tweeting stuff. Well, McAfee's best friends with Rodgers, so maybe that actually would make sense. Titans, potential top pick, Abdul Carter. The Titans had the first pick. He might need surgery, Pat. He's got a foot injury. Still worth the risk?
No.
Ooh, let's go.
No. Yeah, not a foot injury. A foot surgery? In my opinion, man, most guys who have foot surgeries, man, that's something that's gonna be lingering. And I don't know what you said. Reaction. What is surgery?
Hold on here. I just want to make sure. I'm just pulling up. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So had scans on his foot. Now he's represented by Rosenhaus.
Okay.
Rosenhaus obviously is doing the whole song and dance where he's like, his foot's never been better. He's got a bionic foot. He's never going to have an issue with it. But there was a stress reaction in his right foot, is what they're dealing.
So is that more like a nerve? Like, that's not structural. So what did they fix?
I don't know. I mean, obviously it's something where like surgery was at least discussed or on the table.
Yeah. That's not like a nerve issue to me.
I don't know. Anytime I think of like something, I just think of like Liz Frank injuries.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's Spence. They could put a screw in his foot and he'd be out 8 weeks. I don't want my number one pick
That's what I'm saying, man. And especially now with all of these teams, having majority of these teams having turf, then you think about the cold weather. I just talked about putting a rubber band in a refrigerator and pulling it out and stretching. The same thing if you got a dang on screw in your foot. You know what I mean? It's a possibility that joint can snap. And with all the pressure that's going to be applied, turning the corners, man, you just holding your breath the whole time.
And Spence is right about this too. He had that shoulder injury against Boise State and basically played with one arm against Notre Dame in the semifinals.
Man. So I wouldn't do it.
Well, I don't want my number one pick looking like the dude on the operation board from that old board game. I don't want the guy to already have a litany of injuries when he comes into the NFL. And I loved Carter, but I agree. I think this changes the calculus on this. It should be close between him and other prospects. I'd go another direction or trade the pick if I were Tennessee. All right. Thanks for listening.
Anyway.
Another topic for another day. Subscribe, rate, review. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to First and Pod. Andrew Fillipponi, Patrick Peterson, and Spencer Ray. Until next time.